Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Monday, May the 26th, 2025. Let's get a little sip of coffee right off the bat. My name is Wes, and you have not turned, you have tuned into Coffee with Wes for this Memorial Day. And before we get started here, let me just share some wonderful news, some great news. At least I think so. So as you know, I usually introduce myself as the interim pastor at the First Baptist Church of Cutler. But as of yesterday, as of Sunday, May the 25th, I have been called as the regular pastor as compared to the irregular pastor. I don't know, full-time pastor. But anyway, I've been called to pastor the First Baptist Church of Cutler, and I am excited about that. And I hope the people of the church are excited about that. It's a great congregation, folks. They're great people, wonderful commitment to the Lord and to the Lord's work. And we're going to work together, and we're going to do what we can to influence and to reach out and to share the love of Jesus to those who are around us, especially in the community of Cutler. So I'm looking forward to a time of service there in Cutler. And so I just wanted to share that good news with you this morning as we continue our time together on this Memorial Day. And today is a day, and one of the things that I wanted to say when I get started was Happy Memorial Day. But really, that's not really, I don't think, a proper greeting to make on Memorial Day, because Memorial Day is a day that's been set aside to honor and to remember those who have died while serving in the military service, protecting our nation. So the day, rather than being a day of celebration as such, it's a time for reflection. It's a time for remembrances as we contemplate the sacrifices made by these individuals in service to our nation. And not only these individuals who sacrificed their lives so that we could live a life of freedom, but also to their families. It's a time to remember and reflect on the sacrifice that these families have made. And so I just want to honor the service and the memory of all those who have died in service to their country through the military. And my prayers and my thoughts go out to their families as well on this Memorial Day. And so we get to celebrate, even though, it's a day of reflection, but we get to celebrate because of the sacrifices that these individuals made. So we ought not to forget any of that. And anyway, let's get started on our time together. And this week we are going to be talking about, we're going to kind of change gears a little bit. We're going to be talking about how living by faith, and we hear people talking about that a lot. Bible talks about that. Living by faith, it begins by being close to God and having a good relationship with Him. And so our big idea today, because the question becomes, well, how do I get close to God and how do I have a good relationship with God? So one of the ways, and this is our big idea, one of the ways to be close to God, to have a good relationship with God, is by choosing to walk with God even when the world is walking away. So think about that. Walking with God even as the world walks away. And so we're going to look into the life of Noah all this week, as an illustration. And we're going to be reading today, most of the week, through Genesis chapter 6, but we're also going to read in Genesis chapter 8 later on. So let me encourage you this week in your time of Bible study to read through Genesis 6 through 8, because that's the whole flood account. And we're not going to get to all of that, but we're going to begin in Genesis chapter 6, and I want to read verses 5 through 9. That's what we're going to look at today. So if you have a Bible, get that. Let's read it together. So the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. And the Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. I want to stop right there. We're not going to be able to get into it this week, but that word regretted, and some translations say the Lord repented. And again, down in verse 7 is, again, the word regret appears. But that word does not mean like the Lord made a mistake. It doesn't mean like when we talk about repenting from our sins and turning away. That's not what that word means in this case. When we say in verse 6 that the Lord regretted that he had made human beings, it means that he was deeply troubled. It means, as verse 6 goes on to say, it means that he was deeply grieved. It means that it hurt him in his heart what he was seeing as a result of making human beings. And so I just wanted to kind of, that's probably all we're going to say about that this week, but I wanted to get that out there. Verse 7, so the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race that I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground. For and here's that word again, I regret that I have made them. And then we see in verse 8 this, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Verse 9, Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. So let me just say this about verses 8 and 9. It says that, Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord and that he was a righteous man. Well, what made Noah righteous in the sight of God was the fact that God first extended grace to Noah. It says that Noah found favor or grace in the eyes of the Lord. And so our righteousness does not come by any of the acts that we do. It's not because, hey, I'm a good person. But our righteousness flows from the fact that we have found favor in the eyes of God, grace, which we cannot earn. Sometimes we think we can earn righteousness and we can earn God's favor or grace by being good or acting a certain way or not acting another way. But that's not the case. Grace comes from God, freely given, undeserved in our behalf. Okay, let's get a little background here. So in Noah's time, the world, according to what we just read, was filled with violence and wickedness and evil intent, and it was like 24/7. Our inclinations was totally always against the Lord. But yet in the midst of all of this, there was Noah. And our passage today says that in verse 9, that Noah was a righteous man, that he was blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. So his faith, the faith that Noah had, was not shaped by the environment in which he lived, but it was shaped by his relationship with God. And here's the application. And there are many applications from these verses, but we're just going to look at one. And this is it. Even when people around us do wrong, and that was the inclination of the people around Noah 24/7, even when everybody else is doing wrong, we can choose to do what is right. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being faithful. And walking with God means living God's way, even when it's not popular. And that's a good application for today because we see that around us. Faith begins by staying close to God each and every day. And so here's our thought for today. Here's what we can take on this Memorial Day Monday. Faithful living, talking about living by faith. Faithful living begins by walking daily. That's step by step, one step at a time. By walking daily with the God who calls us to righteousness. All right, so think about that today. We want to walk close to God. We want to have a good relationship with God, and it's a step-by-step, day-by-day activity where we stay close and we walk with God and we follow God when the whole world seems to be turning away. Folks, have a great Monday. I hope things go well today. If you have picnics and family get-togethers and parades, and I think I'm going with watch the grandkids, my 6-year-old and 4-year-old grandchildren run a mile at the Heron Fest. So we'll see how that turns out. Landry and Garner. We'll see how that turns out. Y'all have a great day. See you again real soon. Bye for now.